We are going live. I'm not sure if it's fully live yet or I'll try to bring this up so that can see comments that people might have. Yeah, there we are. All right. Thank you, folks, for joining me and Chiquita on this. You can see we're already tapping. We're admittedly a little nervous about this. So, first of all, hey, Chiquita, say hi.
Hi, Brad. How are you?
I'm this good.
I'm so happy to be here today.
I'm so happy to be here with you because I'm so happy to have gotten to know you and so happy that you're on this journey with me. So happy that other folks are joining us. This is powerful and it is challenging. Right up front, when I posted the promo that we made for this the other day, already got some pushback. I had people saying, I have loved your work for over 10 years and I'm unsubscribing. And it's like, okay, so obviously this is pushing some buttons. And I will admit right from the beginning that it took me a little while to realize I didn't help matters with the with the promo because we just decided just to off the cuff, just started talking and then we shot it, except for one scripted line where I said to Chiquita, hey, wouldn't it be funny if you say, hi, I'm Chiquita, I teach racial equity, and I say, hi, I'm Brad, and I'm a white guy. And my intention of that was that you're an expert in the subject, not just by virtue of being a person of color, but by having studied this and teaching this. And
Sure
my
thing.
only credential in terms of talking about race issues is I'm white. I don't have any expertise in it. Now, my expertise that I'm bringing to the table here is I have a knack with saying things while we're tapping. And the tapping is such a profound tool for allowing us to come into a place where we can have these uncomfortable conversations because it's so important that we have these conversations. So people thought that when I said I'm a white guy, that I was saying I'm the problem, I'm ashamed of being white, and this is all about shaming white people. And please, if that is what you're
Oh,
afraid of,
no, 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 no.
we are
Today,
not about shame.
no, today is an invitation to the work of peace and justice. That's what.
Amen. Amen. Many of you have seen my, in my videos, my wristband, it says cultivate peace. That is job number one for me. I am not showing up in any way, shape, or form to make anyone feel bad. It is all about setting us free. And in one of the things that came to me in terms of this is the classic poem by John Donne, No Man is an Island. And, the idea that any man's death diminishes me. Well, any man's hurt diminishes me. You know, ask not for, to send for who the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Who's being hurt by racism? We all are. We're all hurt by this myth, this lie, and so this healing is for everyone. It's not about come on, white people, help black people. This is about let's heal all of us because we're all being hurt.
There is a wonderful two quotes that come to mind. The first is from Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a very well known civil rights activist, voting rights activist, who said, nobody is free until everybody is free.
Yes, yes, that was in
So,
that book.
yes. And I also think of the quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, who said that we are all caught up in an inescapable mutual network of destiny. And so, anywhere where there is injustice, that is a threat to justice everywhere. And
Yeah,
so, it is so important that for those of us who are committed to healing, to hope, to well being, to peace, and to justice, to take this issue on for those who are primarily being harmed, but also to make sure that we are in a place of healing and a place of justice.
yeah, yeah. The trauma that comes from this is felt at some level by all of us. And whether you're being directly hurt by racism, or if you are inflicting harm in a racial way, you're hurting yourself. We are hurting ourselves. And if we are just experiencing it, it's secondhand trauma. So we can't say, oh, well, I'm not doing that and I'm not the one that's being done to. So, and so it's not about shooting on anyone that you should do. It's saying there's a part of you that is suffering because of this. And let's all heal. Let's all get to a real place of peace. So I wanted to start out with a quick tapping round. So everyone go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath and let it go. And just allow yourself to be present right now. Feel your feet on the floor, whatever part of you is connected to something. Allow yourself to feel that connection. Allow yourself to feel centered and grounded. Allow yourself to be right here, right now, as present as possible, so as to receive maximum benefit from our time together. And just allow yourself to acknowledge whatever discomfort you might feel. I'm so grateful to you for showing up, for the courage and showing up and being here and allowing yourself to be aware of those parts of you that are saying, yeah, it's taking some courage because this is uncomfortable. Because no one really wants to talk about this issue. And so allow yourself to acknowledge what's in there, what you're feeling, where you're feeling it, how intense you might be feeling it, what thoughts, beliefs, and memories might contribute to any discomfort you're experiencing. Take another deep breath. Open your eyes. Even though this is uncomfortable, I choose to love and accept myself. Even though this is uncomfortable, I choose to love and honor myself. Even though this is uncomfortable, and I really don't want to talk about it. I don't want to listen to anything about it. I don't want to be lectured. I'm afraid of being shamed. I'm afraid I might feel guilty. I'm afraid I might feel angry. And even though this is really uncomfortable, I choose to deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. And maybe anyone else involved in this. Because I choose to be that free. All this discomfort. It is so uncomfortable to talk about racism. I'm surprised I even showed up. Because part of me really doesn't want to be here. And I choose to acknowledge that part of me that decided I want to be part of the solution. That decided that I want more peace. I'm acknowledging myself for being here. And as long as I'm here, I choose to feel as good as possible. I choose to feel as much peace as possible. Part of me might say I shouldn't. I can't feel peace until all injustice is eradicated. Well, that plan sucks. And the more upset I am, the more likely I am to do harm to myself or others. The more upset I am, the harder it is to think clearly. Stress shuts down my rational mind. And I want to be thinking as clearly as possible so I can make the best choices possible, so I can do as much good as possible for myself and others. So I'm giving myself permission to heal, giving myself permission to relax. I choose to know that this is a safe space. I choose to know that Chiquita and Brad want the best for me. They're holding me in a loving space. And I'm allowing myself to feel safer. Clearing this sense of threat. Allowing myself to feel peace and love. As I set myself free in body, mind, and spirit. Take a deep breath. And again, thank you for being here. And so, Chiquita, let me know what's top on your thoughts of what to talk about.
I
And
think
first, so I'm sorry, real quick, folks, I'm going to encourage you to keep tapping throughout the. Take advantage of this time. Don't. I recommend tapping on a daily basis. So sorry to interrupt you. It's like, oh.
yes,
Reminder of what we're here for. This is all about tapping as we go through stuff.
Well, I'll start there. So my name is Chiquita Williams. I am a racial justice educator and educational consultant and an avid tapper. I discovered tapping in 2018. I had heard of it before, but was at a place in my life where I decided I wanted to try out some new energy work. And I went through a bunch of videos on YouTube and I was like, I don't like this, I don't like this. And then I discovered Brad. And I was like, yes, this is it. And started making it a daily practice ever since. So I tap every morning. The first thing that I do when I wake up, I say gratitude prayer and I do some tapping. And often before I go to sleep at night, I do some tapping. So tapping has been a wonderful resource and process for my own healing in my life. And I always say that tapping has been transformative to my life. So yes, I encourage you to keep tapping throughout this session and to make tapping a daily practice because it really will change your life. I come to racial justice work as an African-American woman whose ancestors were enslaved in this country. I live in New York City, which is the unceded land of the Lenape. And part of doing racial justice work is to engage in truth telling and to be fully honest about our history, our culture, and what has led us up to 2020. The events that are happening in 2020 are not happening in a vacuum. They didn't just pop up out of nowhere. There's a 500-year-long history to this. But often when we start thinking about the word race, just that word itself evokes a lot of fear in us. And so we carry a lot of trauma. And it's important for us to do somatic body-based work like tapping in order to support us to stay with the conversation, to engage in courageous conversation, and to find a semblance of healing and peace as we try to sort through the muck of the last 500 years.
Yeah. And as Resmaa Menachem has said, it's even at least that much, if not more, because while it's acknowledged that trauma from slavery is carried in Black bodies. Trauma from man's inhumanity to man has carried through in all of us. And so, as I started reading this book, My Grandmother's Hands, which thank you, Chiquita, for recommending it, I'm only a little ways into it, and it's already blowing my mind. And I'm putting the link in the chat. Please get this book. Please read it. But how we all have this trauma, and when we do harmful actions towards people, it is because there's pain in us. And so allowing ourselves to heal that trauma, that maybe it's happened in our lives, maybe it happened in an ancestor's, whether it was the last generation or 15 generations ago, that we're carrying, and to allow ourselves to go, okay, I want to heal everything.
And, and even for those of us who may not see ourselves as engaging us in harm, we are witnesses to racial trauma. We are witnesses to racial harm. And we have ancestors throughout our line who have been witnesses to harm. And we carry that within our bodies. And so I am a huge fan of Resmaa Menakem, who Brad just mentioned, who wrote the book, My Grandmother's Hands. I recommend everybody go out and get that book or get the audio book, and really start to do some processing of that racial trauma that is embodied in all of us. Menakem refers to it as somatic abolitionism. We have to be honest that we live in a society that is racialized. Whether we see ourselves as personally participating in racism or not, racism is embedded in the DNA of our country. Racism is written into the Constitution. Racism is written into our laws, our practices, our customs, our religious rights, our educational system. It is everywhere. And one of the ways that it functions and is able to function is that it is invisible to many of us because it is so normal, it's so normative to our culture. And so it is important for us to take a step back and start to do that body-based healing so we can think about and look at and be honest about our culture and start to transform our culture.
And it's scary to look at that and recognize, because it's like, if I look at that, then do I have to feel bad as a white person? And to me, it's like, okay, but that would be like saying I should feel bad for speaking English, because I was raised speaking English. I was also raised in a society that has racism built into it. I didn't even know it. It's, for watching, it's been interesting, my conversations with Chiquita, because I'll say things that, and so I'll use the term white privilege, and I used that in the video, and someone said, "Oh, that's a racist term." White privilege to me is just a convenient way of describing that the blinders that I have, where I allow myself to see that this is the norm and that nothing's going on here. I don't see what's going on, that I'm sure it's not affecting me. And so I don't even recognize where it's rigged. I don't recognize the things in the laws. It's so interesting as you go through the history, and you learn that this concept of racism and whiteness didn't start until the late 1600s, when trying to find a moral justification for the immoral act of slavery, and also the how wealthy white landowners used this to get poor white workers to side with them rather than with their fellow poor workers who were people of color. It's like, let's see, how do we rig the game so that these guys are on our side instead? And so there's all kinds of reasons why this idea of race, when there is only the human race.
Right. So you mentioned things that are so important. First of all, race is not a biological concept. There is nothing in biology or genetics to justify separating human beings based on physical characteristics. We are all 99.9% the same under the skin, and the genes that dictate the expression of skin color, eye shape, eye color, nose are all different genes. It's not even the same set of genes. And so it's important to acknowledge that this is not a biological reality. It is a social reality. And so Brad mentioned that in the 1600s, the category white was created. And it was created to distinguish those people who lived on this land who were able to benefit from human and civil rights and opportunities. That was codified into law in 1680 and in subsequent laws up until 1790 and in various different laws, Supreme Court decisions, et cetera, since that time, right? And so it is so crucial for us to know our history. Yes, white was created after Bacon's Rebellion when poor whites, poor Africans, and poor indigenous people got together to overthrow the wealthy landowners. And they said, hey, we can't have this. We need to have a strategy to get folks on our side. And so in part, the category white was created to bring people of European descent over to their side to say, at least you have a little bit something. You don't have as much as the wealthy 1%, but you have a little bit of something so that you can be proud of. And we will employ you as overseers on plantations. We will employ you as patrol officers who guard the plantations and take back escaped slaves, which is actually the origins of policing in this country, right? We will allow you to take on certain jobs, poorly paid jobs, but certain jobs and certain opportunities as long as you go along with this idea of whiteness. And not all people of European descent were considered white at all times. There was a time when the Irish were not considered white, when Italians and Greeks and Polish people were not considered white. But over the centuries, they have been folded into whiteness in order to keep a majority population of white people in this country who can continue to dominate the country politically.
Yeah, and that's an important note that legally classified early on in our country, well, before it was even a country, that people who are now considered white were classified as non-white. And so all of this history that most of us have no clue about, we just have this assumption because we've been raised with this assumption that white is the norm. And we don't even, sometimes subtly recognize it. So for instance, I just as a little mental exercise for myself the other day, I was thinking about, I live on a cul-de-sac. It's a nice little neighborhood. We've got great people here. There are only a couple of families. There's one older woman who's Black and then a family down the street. And they've been friends of ours for years. Their kids are the same age as our kids and went to school. And once in a while, I've had the thought over the years of, I wonder what it feels like for them being on a street where everybody else is white. Because I know that if I was the only white person on a street and everybody else on the street was Black, because of the way that the society that I've grown up in, I would notice it. And so just these little things that we so often take for granted. And it's given ourselves permission to learn this history, to see what's going on, so that we're not just stuck in the same mindset of everything's fine, it's fine for me, I'm not going to participate. We're all participating. And we can change that.
And it's not by accident that you live in a suburb that is mostly white. The suburbs were created when Black and brown people started to move into certain urban neighborhoods and started to become the majority population. And so the suburbs were deliberately constructed so that white people had a place to go when they wanted to flee these communities. It is not an accident that a person of color who has who has wealth, who has good credit, is kept out from these suburbs by redlining, by being denied bank loans. A white person who makes $30,000 a year is able to live in the same community as a Black person who makes $100,000 a year, because the other communities where white folks are making $100,000 a year are often strategically keeping them out, right? There are all of these rules around if a house goes up for sale, that the people in the community have the first right of refusal, right? Those are strategies. We don't think of that as being racism, but those are strategies for keeping people of color out of communities. And so it's so important to think about all of the different ways that racism functions. And again, racism is rendered invisible. It's something that we learn and forget, as Dr. Sherman Jackson from USC says. We learn racism and we forget it. And we have all of these names and tools and tactics designed to keep people of color separated from white people. And we give it certain names so that we don't call attention to its racist nature, but the impact, the effect of it is to keep us separate, to keep us from loving each other, learning together, breaking bread together, so that we can coexist together and throw off the yoke of the oppression that we all experience. And I just want to say something about white privilege, because I think that that is a confusing term for a lot of people. People hear that and they're like, my life has been hard. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any privilege.
And everybody keep tapping through this. Keep tapping as all this stuff that's coming up as we talk about this.
And I hear that, right? I hear that people have, if you are battling cancer, if you grew up poor, if you have had to work hard your entire life to get everything that you have, you might be asking, like, what is this privilege? And white privilege is only to say you didn't have to work as hard as a person of color for it, right? And so your whiteness was not one of the things that held you back in life or oppressed you in life, right? And again, to go back to that example, you can be an African-American person who is making a certain amount of money that is considered upper middle class and still be relegated to urban communities, still be relegated to certain positions within the organizations that you work for, have to work twice as hard to prove yourself as everybody else. And so white privilege is really a framework for us saying that you may have had to work hard, you may have had difficulties in your life, but race is not one of the difficulties that you have had to endure. Another thing that is confusing about the idea of privilege is that different people have different levels of privilege. Not all white privilege looks the same. So if you are a woman, if you are a queer person, if you are disabled, if you are an immigrant, if you don't speak English, if you are considered overweight, whatever that means, right? You're going to be treated differently than another white person who doesn't have those other forms of injustice or social stratification. So it's going to look different for you if you are Jeff Bezos versus if you are someone living in the Corn Belt, or if you are someone who is living in the Rust Belt. But you still have a degree of collective currency and power that people of color do not have because of the structures set up in our country to benefit white people. So all white people benefit from the structure of racism, even if they are not actively participating in it. And that's what we mean by privilege.
Yeah. And so for me, as a straight, white, cis, male, upper middle class, and I even have it over Jeff Bezos because I have my hair. So, and society is built upon that being the norm, and everything else is a deviation from that. And this goes back historically because God is portrayed as a white man.
Even though there's nothing in the Bible that justifies a blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus. And we got to start, like,
yes.
we have to ask
Right.
ourselves, why has God and the angels been rendered white when there is nothing in the Bible to justify that? When in fact, there are verses in Revelations that said that Jesus has skin like burnt copper and woolly hair. So where did white Jesus come from?
Because Christianity was built by white people for the in terms of like where it came from when the message was spread like through Rome and Italy. And so the idea that God created man in his image, well, if I'm white, then God's image is obviously white. And they were going to create a God that was comfortable and familiar, as opposed to one that was rather than creating a Jesus that was historically accurate, let's create him as what our ideal of what a person looked like. And so with all this talk about white privilege, I want to be very clear for folks, because I know that as I hear this stuff, there's a part of me that feels compelled to feel guilty. Oh, I should feel guilty about how much easier it's been for me. Your guilt doesn't do anyone any good. You cannot feel guilty enough. The thing is to be aware and to decide, I'm going to take a stand against this. It's not going to be, I had, so in those, in the comments that I got on that promo video, I had some people questioning my motives, saying that, I'm virtue signaling and this, and it's not about that. Again, my rule one is cultivating peace. And so I just saw this and go, this is, all of us are suffering here. How can I do what I do and not say this is someplace where there's a lot of healing necessary? Guilt is not healing. So please don't feel like what you need to be doing to be a good white person is feel guilty. It's a matter of, no, allow yourself to acknowledge what's going on. Don't hide from the truth and say, oh, this is how it is. This isn't right. And I am going to do what I can do to turn this around.
And I definitely believe that guilt is a valid feeling that people have. It's going to come up, but don't get stuck there, right?
Yeah.
Acknowledge, mindfully acknowledge, oh, I feel guilty about what I just heard. I feel some shame about what I just heard. Now pivot. What am I going to do to transform this culture? None of us were born racist. None of us came to earth racist, right? But we were all racialized during our lifetime. So how do we become conscious of that and then begin to bear witness to what justice can look like? How do we, as Martin Luther King said, make America be what she says she is on paper, right? We know that this is a country that we have these ideals of being about liberty and justice and well-being for all and the pursuit of happiness for all, but that has not been the case for all. So how do we today in 2020 make a decision that we want America to be the greatest nation on earth, that we want America to be that shining example and beacon of how we all can coexist and how we all can live well and be well and thrive together. I do want to go back really quickly to the conversation we were having around spirituality, right? Because the idea of a white Jesus and of a white divine has been used to justify the genocide of Native people. It has been used to justify the enslavement of African people. It has been used to justify lynching and discrimination and harm against people of Asian descent. It has been used to colonize and harm people of Latin descent, right? Latinx descent. And so we have to unpack that, and we have to think of different models of spirituality in order for us to foster this sense of well-being, of peace, and of justice. We know that Jesus Christ did not come to earth to do all that has been done, all of the harm that has been done in his name. And so how do we reclaim that legacy? How do we live out the best of that legacy? And if you are not a Christian person, if you are a person of another faith, how do you claim the best of your faith to make sure that you are doing the most in service of humanity and not committing idolatry? Your support and connection and clinging to white skin is a form of idolatry. And so how are we going to act in the best interest of all humanity, of our spiritual selves, and of our personal selves?
Yeah. And if we're not doing that, we're harming ourselves. This is not simply a plea for charity. You know, you're doing fine, but please do something nice for someone else. I mean, obviously, that's a great thing to do. Please, by all means, be as charitable as you can be and do as much good for others as you can do, regardless of what it comes back to. But don't kid yourself that this is just an altruistic thing, because and that there's no harm to you if you ignore it, because it does. It does. You know, as you said at the beginning, no one is free until everyone is free, and the whole purpose of doing emotional freedom technique is to be free. We want absolute freedom, as much freedom as possible, and recognizing something like this that for so many people, again, is, as you said, it's so invisible, it's so subtle that we don't even see how it is limiting our well-being. And you deserve better.
Right, and I want to talk about the benefits of being involved in this work. When we take care of our most marginalized communities and populations, we by extension take care of ourselves. We by extension make sure that when everybody has rights, that we have rights. When everybody is doing well economically, that we are doing well economically. We get into this kind of stuck in this thought pattern. Well, if we give rights to everybody, what will be left for me, right? And this
Yes.
is about creating a world where everybody can thrive, right? And so when you take care of your neighbor, I don't know how many of you regularly give to charity or regularly do community service. It's something I've been doing since I was a small child. When I'm able to give $5 to someone who was struggling in India, I get benefits from that. I get spiritual and personal benefit from that.
Karma points.
Right. When I go and feed the homeless at a soup kitchen, I get benefits from that, right? And so we can't just think about what we have to lose when we are not committed to justice, but also what do we have to gain when everybody is doing well in the world?
Yeah, it's a win-win situation. It's just a win-win situation. Yeah, the point you just brought up about what if everyone has rights, what happens to me? And there's a sense of identity. There is, for a lot of folks, there's a feeling of, I need this to make myself feel better, or to have some superiority, even if I'm not a white supremacist in terms of being harmful and having hateful thoughts. There's still a sense of, but I get to at least feel good about that, and that how your identity can get tied into that through no fault of your own. Just you've been raised to, say we, so many of us, and in different ways. And it happens within all kinds of different cultures. There's haves and have-nots. Mm-hmm. And if there aren't have-nots, then am I no longer a have? Mm-hmm. And that feels threatening. And so acknowledging that and recognizing we can all be haves. You can create a world that really works for everybody. And if it's not working for everybody, I truly believe that God is so magnanimous that one person's highest good never comes at the expense of another person's highest good. And if your highest good is coming at the expense of someone else's highest good, it's not really your highest good. It's just you've convinced yourself that it is.
The world is abundant. The world is abundant. There is enough to go around for everybody. There is enough for everybody to live well. But if your sense of value and personhood is based on being part of the dominant group, whether you're here in America, whether you are in Africa where there's ethnic strife and ethnocentrism, whether you are in India and there is a caste system, if your sense of well-being and personhood comes from dominating others, you got a problem. And you have to start working on building up who you really are and using it as an opportunity to come into your magnificence. As Brad always says, be magnificent, right? We are all, I believe we are all sent to this world to be the best, most vibrant, most magnificent people we have to be. And whatever is ordained for you cannot be taken away from you. It is yours. And so our personhood cannot be connected to, or our value cannot be connected to these something as shallow as skin color. It has to be connected to us doing the personal, spiritual, and communal work to become our very best selves.
And you deserve that. And why settle for less? Why? I have to tap because so many of the things you say, even in the other conversations we've had, Chiquita, I think this woman is so awesome. It's exciting that your mom is here. My mom's here too. I think it's so great they're both here watching this. But so often you say things and I get very verklempt. And I'm sorry if using that word is appropriation. But yeah, why settle for less than being the highest version of yourself? And I know it's challenging because we have been raised, whatever our color is, whatever our ethnicity is, whatever our background, we've been raised with certain things. It's not a matter of, I would say, I don't think you should be any more ashamed than you are of whatever language you speak. But knowing, if I then learn that, wow, every time I speak English, it's hurtful to somebody, then it would be a good idea for me to go, okay, well, I was raised speaking this, but maybe I should stop now because now I know that it's harmful. And so allowing ourselves to recognize the harm that is done through the way the system is set up by people who even knew. So it's so interesting that, when we look at, one of the things that happens when people have said Black Lives Matter and someone else says all lives matter, it's like, yes, but you have to recognize that historically, all has not meant all in this country. The man who wrote all men are created equal was a slave owner. So all did not mean all. And from what I understand, he knew that. He felt ashamed of that, but he was so economically tied to it that he didn't allow him. He gave into that, the economic side versus what his soul was telling him. So, but allowing ourselves to say, this is the system, here's where we are. And I'm going to recognize it. I'm going to stand up to it. Hopefully we can all tap and move through cancel culture because we're going to make mistakes. Both Chiquita and I had concerns about doing this. It's like, oh, what if we make fools of ourselves? What if we insult people? What if people get upset? White people will be upset. People of color will be upset. And it's like, okay, but we can't shy away from that. We had to do our own tapping to show up because we need to have these conversations so that we can get to a place where we don't need to have these conversations because it's like, race? What? There's just people.
Right. I do want to say something about cancel culture. I think that folks who built power on social media and on the internet to hold people accountable who historically have never been held accountable for their harm and their actions created a wonderful thing, right? And it's important to acknowledge the intention behind building the base of power online to hold people accountable. Um, at the same time, ending racism is going to require us to build relationships. And we cannot do that if we cancel everybody who makes a mistake and who says the wrong thing, who uses the wrong term, who uses the wrong word. You know, like that has been
Who makes a promotional video that's kind of imperfect.
right, like that has been one of the negative aspects of social media, is that it doesn't give us time to sit and circle with each other, to sit in the same room with each other. I'm a circle keeper, by the way. I do restorative justice circles, so I had to throw that in there. It doesn't give us a chance to like actually exchange air and hormones with each other, right? And so it is so important that we invest in relationships, invest in discourse and dialogue, even when it is hard and challenging. And I don't believe for a second that there is anybody who is not redeemable on the issue of race. There are people who have been in the Ku Klux Klan, people who have been in the Aryan Nation, who have disavowed those groups because they had a meaningful relationship with someone who supported them to get out of it, right? Whether it's been a fellow white person, whether it's been a person of color. Daryl Davis has lots of YouTube videos where he talks about being a Black man who has convinced white people to leave the KKK. And I'm certainly not saying that the burden of anti-racism is on people of color. It's not. We did not invent this. White people invented this. White people have to take the lead in working with folks in their community and having these discussions, these dialogues, building relationships, doing the somatic work to get people to come to the other side, right? But for me, as a person of color, I have made a life investment in racial justice, and I will talk to anybody about this at any time. Everybody who knows me, I will talk about race anytime, anywhere, any place, right? Because I am invested in transforming our society. And so cancel culture does not get us what we want and what we need. Audre Lorde said that we cannot dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. And so if racism is built on hate, violence, oppression, harm, then the response has to be built on love. It has to be built on a culture of well-being. It has to be built on a response of lifting people up, right? And so we cannot respond to racism using the same tools of shame, guilt, and harm and violence that has been used against us. We have to commit to an ethic of nonviolence. We have to commit to treating others with respect and with regard, if that is what we are challenging in the world.
Right. And it's like what Martin Luther King Jr. said about hate cannot conquer hate. Only love can do that. And I totally get, and this is part of the thing for me, is totally get, for me as a white man to say, hey, stop with all the hate and cancel culture. No, it's not. It is not a matter of, hey, please go easy on me. And Chiquita and I had to have this conversation about, there's not a moral equivalent between cancel culture and hundreds of years of slavery and oppression and things like that.
Absolutely not.
And I am absolutely not saying that. It's about, people who are white needing to stand up and be able to be courageous in the face of cancel culture and anger and things like that. Absolutely. And because of white privilege, a lot of white people say, I don't have to. It's uncomfortable. And hey, the game is rigged in my favor, so why should I hang around? So the idea of moving past cancel culture is not because, come on, be nice about it. It's, hey, we need these people involved. don't don't give people an out by making it so difficult that they run away. And and I totally understand the anger. This is not about, you have nothing to be angry about. And I know that there are white people out there who say, oh, come on, it all ended after slavery was abolished, or it all ended after the Civil Rights Act was signed in the 60s. You're not stupid, but you are ignorant. And ignorance is not stupid. The ignorance and stupidity are two very different things. So it's allowing ourselves to be aware of where we have been ignorant, where we have allowed ourselves to pretend that things are not happening, and moving past that, allowing ourselves to show up and acknowledging, oh, people have a right to be angry, and we want to transmute that into something that gets what we really want.
And I would say to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, absolutely, you have the right to be angry about all of the hostility and microaggressions and macroaggressions you experience every day. I'm angry all the time, right? And if you're not angry, then you're not paying attention, right? But again, it's about making that pivot, right?
Don't stay angry.
If we act in a way that is consistent with what we have been given, with the harm that we have been given, then we're not going to get what we want. And I always say, do we just want to go around punishing white people, or do we want to get liberated? Those are two different things, right? And our liberation is going to come from a space of acting opposite of domination, acting opposite of violence, acting opposite of harm. And I know that there are folks out there who will not agree with me. I am not a person who walks around telling folks this is how you get free and this is it. And I'm not going to pay attention to what you say. I'm just coming from my vantage point, knowing that when I get angry about race and I stay stuck in that, my body doesn't feel good. Yeah. And I'm not able to manifest to my highest self. And so I pay attention to the anger. I pay attention to what it is telling me about the despair that I feel, about the hopelessness that I feel, about the boundaries that have been crossed. And then I think about, what do I need to do to transform this situation, and how can I support others to transform the situation?
Yeah. Uncomfortable emotions, and I always like to say uncomfortable emotions rather than bad or negative emotions. I don't think any emotion is negative. They all serve a purpose. To me, anger is like a smoke detector. It's letting you know there's a problem. Yes. Now, but the thing is that the way most of us deal with anger is to just get upset about the noise and then start grabbing pots and pans and banging louder to try to drown out the noise. It's a matter of saying, oh, it's alerting me to a problem. Either one, there's a fire that I need to put out, or two, the batteries need to be changed and there's no problem. It's just a misunderstanding. Because so much of what we get angry about is a misunderstanding. So people absolutely have, for anyone about anything, if you're feeling anger, you have a right to be angry. You also have a right to feel peace. And it's a matter of going, okay, I have this feeling. It's a call to action. It's not a place that I'm supposed to sit in and then do more harm, because we can't end harm by doing more harm. I know that society for thousands of millions of years has said otherwise. Oh, the best way to get rid of bad things is to do more harm to those people. And we need to break free from that. And that's why we tap, is so that we can process. Tapping is not about, oh, I've got a bad feeling, I need to get rid of it. Tapping is a matter of being able to process it, a matter of looking at it and going, is this a misunderstanding? Did this really happen to me? If so, what can I do about this? How do I transmute this and solve the problem? How do I put out the fire rather than just trying to make a bigger fire that that drowns that out?
And I don't want people of color to question themselves about whether or not racism is really happening, right? We have enough information over the last 500 years to know for sure that racism is happening, right? And so I don't want us to go to that place, but I want us to know that we can have accountability and we can have peace internal peace at the same time. If we don't cultivate a sense of healing justice and a sense of peace, white people can go away tomorrow and we will tear our communities apart. And so I am asking Black, Brown, Indigenous, and Asian people to really commit to your own sense of healing justice, your sense of radical joy, your sense of well-being as you are working to hold white people accountable for the harm and for their complicity. We can do both at the same time. We are smart enough to do both at the same time.
We often have this feeling that we need to be motivated by misery. If I'm not angry, then I'll say, oh, well, if I'm not pissed off about racism, then I'll just let it happen. If I'm not scared about something, then I won't make good decisions. And I always counter people with, okay, so when you're walking across the street, do you stop and say, okay, I need to get myself into a real panic about being hit before I look both ways? No, you can feel absolutely calm and peaceful and still look both ways to make sure it's safe to cross the street. You can feel calm and peaceful inside and still say the system is faulty, to say the least, and there are ways to fix this. And I want to turn this around, but I don't have to say, okay, well, let's see. I don't feel motivated to do anything today. I'll have to get really upset and angry. I'll have to read the news and find something to get me pissed off to motivate me to go out and do something good in the world. And what happens is that we may often see where we could take action, but we're afraid. We resist taking action because it's scary. Hey, as a white person, I didn't have to do this in my mind. I mean, I could have said I don't have to do this, so that when I got pushback and people saying I'm going to unsubscribe, I could have said, okay, Chiquita, you're on your own. This is uncomfortable. And that's not to, I'm not trying to say, hey, aren't I fantastic for doing this? This is for me as much as anyone else in terms of, I want peace for me. This is not an act of charity or me being a good guy. But looking at that place of feeling like we need to, we won't take action unless we're upset, is because we're afraid to take action. And so we wait until a more powerful emotion pushes us. I'm afraid to say anything until I get so pissed off that I force myself, because when I get really upset, whether it's anger or fear or guilt or shame, whatever those uncomfortable emotions are, those shut down the prefrontal cortex, goes offline, and I don't think clearly and I don't make good decisions. Now I'm taking action, but it's not necessarily the best action. I may do more harm. So it's a matter of saying, okay, but if I clear the fear, then I can be in peace of mind. I can have my rational brain online and I can make good choices and I can move forward without having to be motivated without having to stoke the fires of anger to push me to the point where I don't care. I'm just going to go, whatever, and take action, try to make something happen, and push past those fears. We want to clear the fear. That's what, as a huge part of this talk is about, is clearing the fear so that we don't wait until we're so upset. So that we just decide, I'm not waiting until there's some other really public incident that makes me so outraged that I need to go and try to say something, until the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and I calm down again and I can go back to sleep and pretend nothing's wrong. It's a matter of saying, I am at peace and I see that things can be better and we deserve to have things be better. And so that's what we're going to do.
Again, this is an invitation to create beloved community. We were born into this system and these structures. We have learned racism, but it is something that we can unlearn. We start with ourselves. We start with our families. We build solidarity with other people in our communities. And we work together on the smallest level possible to make change. And if all 360 million of us are out there making small changes, then what a wonderful, wonderful, amazing transformation our country will make.
And 7 billion people on top. uh, so I know we're over the hour now. I want to close with a little exercise. I always like to close sessions with a guided imagery. Start as hypnotherapist. It's a very nurturing process. There's a little bit of a tapping round that I want to do before that. I totally understand if folks have some place they have to go. I know Kimberly's got a lunch date. Um, so while everyone is still here, thank you so much for showing up. Joy had asked, what's the win-win situation that'll get people to show up? We don't know. All we can do is put it out there, and we can't force anyone, but we can put it out there and let it grow. And hopefully people will recognize, they'll see our peace of mind and go, ooh, I'll have what they're having. I want some of that. That sure looks a lot better than the anger and the hatred that I'm feeling. And Joy asked about guys. Yes, guys, we are notoriously bad at asking for directions. That's part of our culture as guys, is we're not supposed to ask for help. We're not supposed to seek help. We're supposed to just have it all figured out. And even if we don't have it all figured out, we'll double down on our ignorance sometimes. So all we can do is keep putting it out there and keep moving forward. And publicly just want to say, Chiquita, thank you for being willing to partner with me. And thanks to your mom for raising a wonderful person. And thanks to my mom for raising me. And my dad, who I think might be watching as well.
And thank you for inviting me to talk about this issue. This is my life's work. This is my life's love. And so thank you for supporting the platform.
Well, I'm seeing how much it ties into my work. After George Floyd's killing, and I decided to do something on racism, and I thought, oh, so now am I a human rights activist? It's like, oh, I've always been a human rights activist. It's just, it's been human rights against our own internal oppression that I've been mostly focused on. And it still is here. Right. This is not against people. This is not a political thing of us people against. This is about starting first with healing ourselves. And so that's where I want to go with this. So everyone close your eyes. If you can hang out with us. If you can't, God love you. Thank you for being here. And maybe you can check out this last part later. You can watch the recording. So with your eyes closed, just go inside for a moment and just allow yourself to be aware of where you may be carrying trauma. And it may be ancestral trauma. It may go back a couple hundred years. It may go back a couple thousand years. And just acknowledge where that might be. Take a deep breath, open your eyes. Even though there's probably some trauma in there, I choose to love and accept myself. Even though there is stuff to be healed, I choose to love and honor myself. Even though there's probably some trauma in there, it may be from this lifetime. It might be from some other lifetime. Maybe my whole lineage. And whether I know it or not, it's running some of my decisions. And it's limiting how good I can feel. And even though I'm carrying at least somebody's trauma, I choose to deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. And maybe everybody else. because I choose for all of us to be that free. All this old trauma, all of this old trauma, whether I picked it up in this lifetime or it came to me through my DNA, it's time to break the cycle. It's time to heal. I'm healing for myself. I'm healing for the people yet to come in the future. I'm healing for all of my ancestors. Because the present moment is all there is. Whatever trauma might have happened, all there is the trauma that I'm holding right now. And I get to heal that. I can heal that. I deserve to heal that. I don't owe it to anyone to hang on to it. Part of me might say, people in my family and in my ancestry suffered so much. I owe it to them to carry this pain. That doesn't do them any good. And it just continues the cycle. I have a right to feel pain. I have a right to feel sadness. I have a right to be angry. My fear is justifiable. Any embarrassment I have is understandable. Any shame or guilt I feel is understandable. And it's not serving anyone. I cannot feel upset enough to make anyone's life better, especially my own. As I set myself free, I'm setting so many other people free. I'm inviting them to be free. I'm liberating myself first. Liberating myself from past trauma. I love and appreciate those parts of me that have been holding on to this, carrying other people's baggage, either because I thought I had to, because I thought that it honored them, or because I didn't even know I had it. I may be unaware of how much baggage I've been carrying and wondering why I feel like I'm so slow at times. Carrying all this extra weight is slowing me down. I'm giving myself permission to put that baggage down. Or at least start the process. I'm allowing myself to heal. And everything is energy. So we are all connected. So the healing I allow myself heals the collective whole. I'm healing other people. Part of me might say, wait a minute. There are some people I'm really pissed off at. And if my healing is going to help them, I better hang on to some of this pain and trauma. to punish them, to teach them a lesson. And I'm tapping through that. And I'm giving myself permission to feel peace. Giving myself permission to feel love. Because I deserve to feel that good. And if that means other people feel more peace, I can be good with that. It's a win-win situation. I'm allowing myself to feel more peace and love. And I'm inviting others to join me as I set myself truly free in body, mind, and spirit. Take a deep breath and go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and hold it, and let it go. Another deep breath in and hold it, and let it go. A third deep breath in and hold it, and let it go. Now just breathing comfortably with your eyes closed. Breathing comfortably, and just imagine that with each breath you take in, you breathe in relaxation and positive energy. Go ahead and imagine a healing light of whatever color you like surrounding your body, so that with each breath you take in, your lungs comfortably draw in that healing light, allowing it to flow through every muscle, nerve, fiber, tissue, cell, and atom of your body. Healing, cleansing, restoring, rejuvenating, rebuilding, growing stronger and healthier. Go ahead and imagine a healing shower flowing down, crystal clear water that's at perfect temperature as it flows over the top of your head, soothing and relaxing your scalp, washing away fear, doubt, anxiety, washing away anger, sadness, guilt, shame, washing away pain, frustration, disappointment, embarrassment, washing these away to reveal the light that you truly are. This unique expression of divine light and love, and allowing more and more of that light to be revealed as that healing shower flows over your forehead, relaxing the muscles in your face, flowing down over the back of your head, your neck, your shoulders, washing away tension, leaving your shoulders calm, comfortable, and relaxed. That healing shower flowing down your arms, all the way down over your fingertips, down over your chest and your stomach, soothing and relaxing, healing and cleansing. And allowing yourself to remain comfortably in whatever position you choose, allow that healing shower to flow down over your upper and lower back. And as your torso relaxes, your internal organs comfortably do whatever they need to do to achieve and maintain your optimal level of health and well-being in body, mind, and spirit, as that healing shower continues down over your body, down over your hips and your thighs, over your knees, down your lower legs, through your ankles into your feet. And finally, that relaxation flows over your toes as you allow yourself to relax twice as much, going at least twice as deep with each number as I count backwards: 5, drifting down to 4, floating down to 3, 2, 1, and 0 is deep sleep. And each and every time you hear me say the words deep sleep with your permission, and only with your permission, you allow yourself to return to this depth, or even deeper, quickly, soundly, deeply. And the physical body relaxes. And with that relaxation comes a wonderful sense of calm well-being of body and mind, deeper, deeper. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And 0 is again deep sleep. And in this calm, comfortable state of mind and body, I'd like you to imagine yourself in some beautiful place. Perhaps the most beautiful place you've ever been, or at least one of the most beautiful places you've ever been. some place where you allow yourself to be present to the beauty, the sheer abundance, the magnificence of creation. You know, you might be at the beach looking out over the vast expanse of the ocean. You might be looking up at a nighttime sky filled with stars. And allowing yourself to recognize that since you have seen at least some of this beauty and abundance, that's evidence that God, spirit, source, universe, however you choose to experience that, finds you worthy and deserving. That abundance is here for you as much as anyone else. It never asks you what color you are, how much money you have, where you were born. This abundance is here for all of us. Allowing yourself to recognize that it's here for you. And for other people to experience takes nothing away from you. You can imagine as many people as you like all around you on the beach or looking up at the stars at night, and their experience of all of this beauty and abundance takes nothing away from you. In fact, it's even more exciting because you have this shared experience of this magnificence. And allow yourself again to be aware of that loving light that is the real you, and really sending love through your body, through every fiber of your being, and allowing that light to expand, and it radiates out. And just imagine shining that light on those people around you. And their light naturally expands as well. And just imagine this whole area around you growing brighter and brighter. And imagine your town growing brighter and brighter because of the light that you're spreading. Your city, your state, your country, your hemisphere, the whole planet. Imagine the whole planet growing brighter and brighter. And just remembering that phrase, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me, and allowing it to be inside you, feeling the peace for yourself first so that you can spread it across the world. And allowing yourself to feel more and more of that peace and feeling really good about spreading it. Let's go even deeper now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 is deep sleep. In a moment, I'm going to count you back out from 0 up to 5. 5 will be wide awake, alert, focused, and energetic, feeling much better than before. Feeling much more peaceful, much more loving towards everyone. Just allowing yourself, when you look at other people, what you see is that light, that divine light, not hidden by just the differences that we all have. Tonight, when you choose to go to sleep, don't be surprised when you fall asleep quickly, soundly, deeply, and sleep very well through the night. During the night, you'll dream. The more you dream, the stronger you become. I'm going to ask your unconscious mind to allow at least one of your dreams to be a very healing dream. Continuing this healing process in body, mind, and spirit so that in the morning, at the time you've chosen to wake up, you wake up easily, feeling refreshed, energetic, and ready to start the day, again, powerfully moving forward, making positive, healthy choices, taking positive, healthy actions that move you and the world forward into an ever more joyful experience of an ever greater abundance of health, wealth, happiness, and love, which are your birthright and which benefit others. And now I go back down to 0, which is always deep sleep, allowing your mind, body, and spirit to digest all these positive thoughts and images, taking them in at a very deep level so that these positive changes occur easily, effortlessly, and naturally. Coming up to 1, feeling physically relaxed. 2, feeling emotionally calm and confident. 3, health and well-being, enthusiasm, love, joy, and gratitude flowing through every muscle, nerve, fiber, tissue, cell, and atom of your body. 4, becoming more and more alert and aware of your surroundings. And 5 is eyes open, wide awake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake. And welcome back. And thank you so much for being here. And let us know, get in touch with us. Let us know how, what you think of this. Let us know how you might like us to continue. Obviously, Chiquita and I both had notes, and I know I didn't get to all of the things that I wanted to talk. I'm sure we didn't touch on a lot of things that you had. And, this is it's interesting because I came up with the title of Recovery from Racism. And because to me, racism is a disease, it's a communicable disease. We spread it, and we can recover from it. And I was thinking about how in like 12-step programs, the recovery program, and in AA, they talk about, the only requirement for membership is a desire to get healthy. And it's not about taking sides on anything. It's about healing and helping other people heal. And, if you guys have requests on how to continue, uh, I'm game.
Let us know. Let us know.
We're in this for the long haul. Doing this until we don't need to anymore. And you're all part of it now, so there. Thank you all. Thank you, Chiquita. Should probably get off before I get verklempt again, because that's part of my program is men aren't supposed to get emotional like that.
Oh, good. We'll have to have a session on gender. Yeah. I teach that too.
Well, I loved that when we first met. It's like, oh, you're also a gender equality. Great, because that's another subject that I can only talk so much about as that side. So, yeah, we're here to heal any and all. Bring it on. Whatever people are struggling with, we're here to cultivate peace. And until everyone's free, none of us is truly free. So thank you all for being a part of that.
Thank you all so much.